Good day. My name is George Washington. I've been asked today to speak to you a bit about the portraits that have been made of me over the years. This portrait that stands behind me is the first time that I was asked to sit for a portrait, and it was at the request of my wife. I can tell you that I have not enjoyed over the years for sitting for so many portraits, but I now find myself at the whim of the artist's pencil very often. This portrait in particular, I am wearing a very different uniform than the one I wear today. You may note that this is the uniform that I wore during the French and Indian conflict. Over my shoulder, you might see the red sash, and by my hip, you will see the silver sword that was given to me, both of these, by General Braddock after the Battle of the Monongahela. These are memories of that battle and that war. You may notice also the orders of march in my pocket, signaling that I had orders from the royal governor and therefore from the king to be in this service. This portrait is very much so in the style of the time. You may note the eyebrows in the face are somewhat differently shaped than my actual face. That is largely because the style that was so prevalent at the time, to have this oval face and arching eyebrows, the style has gone and changed over time, but it still remains, of course, in our portraiture. My wife very much so likes this portrait of myself. This next portrait is by Mr. Alexander Campbell of Williamsburg, which to my knowledge is no person at all. This portrait appeared sometime after I took command of the Continental Army, and my wife sent it to me. We found it very amusing because the artist claims that I sat for him in Williamsburg. I have never met such a person, and I don't believe any such person has ever existed in Williamsburg. The portrait, of course, looks nothing like me, which I think is very apparent that this artist has never laid eyes on me before. But there was a demand that people wished to know what I looked like now that they had heard that I was made Commander-in-Chief of the Army. And so this portrait was put forward for someone's profit, certainly not for mine, and certainly not to my advantage. But my wife and I over the years have collected a good many portraits that look nothing like me because we find them very amusing. When Mr. Peel set out to capture our victory at Princetown, he very much so wished to look back on that victory, which was then 2 years past, and celebrate it with as much honor as he could bring to the portrait. You will notice the victorious flags at my feet. Those are the defeated Hessian flags that have been put down. And also, you will note that the uniform, of course, has changed somewhat, and the pose was one that he was very fond of. He used it many times. I am upon the cannon there, but here, holding my hat just so, and with his arm cocked thus. And I must tell you that that portrait, along with many others, I became very tired of this particular pose. In this particular portrait by Mr. Williams, you will notice that it is not very flattering. In fact, I had been in the presidency for some years, had been very ill, and Mr. Williams wished to portray that as accurately as possible, using pastels to paint rather than oils as normal. But I can say that this portrait, while it is not one that I am particularly fond of, did capture my appearance at the moment, rather haggard. Mr. Stewart, an artist who is very popular with many, not so much with myself. I can tell you that he has a habit of talking at great length to no purpose whatsoever when you are sitting before his brush and easel. This portrait is particularly annoying to me. You see, he began this portrait and he has not yet completed it, even though some years have passed. He refers to me as his $50 bill. He paints portraits of me based on this portrait that he has not yet finished. He makes copy after copy, finishing those others for profit, while not completing the one that was requested first. This bust is the work of Mr. Houdon of France. He is very well reputed for his ability to capture one's likeness in plaster, a process, I can tell you, most uncomfortable. I was laid out upon a table here at Mount Vernon and had quills placed in my nostrils so I might breathe while plaster was placed all around my face. My granddaughter came into the room and screamed because she was afraid that I had died. While the process was uncomfortable, the likeness, very pleasing, and my wife says it is the one that she finds most pleasing to her. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you today, and I hope that you have enjoyed hearing about these portraits. Good day.